That's always good. Alfred, did you know you're on here twice? Oh, no, 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 don't want to do that. All right.
Hey there.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. There it is.
Hey, Alfred. Hadn't seen you in a while. How you doing?
Hold on, I need to turn up the volume. I can't hear you. There's who knows why. Okay, test it again.
Test, test, testy.
A
Is that
little
better?
more.
Little more, little more, little more.
There we go. That'll work.
Okay.
That'll work. At least I'm gonna make it work. I'm bummed I can't go to your happy hour.
You know, we knew it was pretty quick, but with everything going on and the holidays coming down the way, and we just decided, what the heck?
Yeah,
We'll schedule another one. Don't you
I love
worry.
it. I just love it. I love the collaboration and the togetherness of it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, this was not, a 2-minute deal.
No, it wasn't.
And we
I
need
said to Stacy yesterday, I'm like, look out, our business is about to explode now that I can lead gen for 4 hours on Tuesdays.
no.
Come on. Like, seriously, what am I going to do myself with myself on Monday nights and Tuesday nights? Monday night is prep and Tuesday is teaching 4 hours.
Yeah. And then by the time you finish teaching, it's like, whoa, I talked a lot.
Yeah. Well, I talk a lot anyway. Just ask Tom. I get home and he gets home and then we spend an hour and a half on the phone and he goes, do you ever stop talking? And I'm like, no.
No, not really.
Hey, Margaret.
I have to keep talking. Oh. Yes, Mark?
What are your thoughts on 72 sold program?
Yeah. Wow.
Man, that was an offensive question. She
No,
left the room.
I just wanted
And
to
now
do
she's
something
got to
with the
shut the door. It's so bad. It's that bad. She's got to shut the door.
No, actually, it's not. At this point in time, I think there's some, based on what I know, I think there's some value in it.
Okay.
And I think you have to have a business or a bankroll that can support it.
Yeah.
Right. So there's two components of 72 sold. Right. There's the 100 and I don't know how much it is, $100 a month or something like that. And I think that's good. However, I think if I was gonna do it in my business, I'd go all in at the 1,500 a month.
Yeah.
What I would
Would you
tell
be-
every single one of you to do is if you have an interest in it, talk to Charles,
Okay.
but don't pull the trigger immediately. Like, don't contact 72 Sold and immediately sign up for the $1,500 a month. Like,
Is
I
it gonna
wouldn't
be-
do that.
Is it going to be similar to like the Zillow Premier Agent program where you're basically paying for leads?
I think it's better because 72 Sold is giving you appointments.
Really? I like the sound of that.
Exactly, right? So if I'm going to spend $1,500 a month and someone's going to give me 4 or 5 appointments and all I have to do is go and close them, I'm probably going to do it. But again,
So what-
if you
if
have an
it's so-
interest in this program, I want you to talk to Charles before you pull the trigger.
Okay. That's cool. I'm gonna meet Mitch on Monday, so I'll try to set up an appointment with Charles while I'm down at the office.
Yeah. And I would just
cool.
let him know you're interested in it, right? I mean, I'll be honest, I'm considering it for my business, but I'm in production, right? Like, I've got a business that's bringing in the income to be able to support that kind of investment, right? And so I figure I've got to set aside for it to work. What do I always guys tell you guys, right? You got to give it a whirl for 6 to 12 months, right? So what is that? $18,000, right? And so you got to have that money set aside. It's not I try it for 1 month for $1,500, and if it doesn't work, I throw in the towel. So
Gotcha.
that's my opinion. So again, I'm going to say it because there's a reason I'm saying it and I can't be very specific. If you're interested in the program, please talk to Charles.
Gotcha. Thank you, Margaret.
Okay. All right. Wow. Our groups just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And this was like, these are like the best classes this week.
And you know what it is? It's because Diane's eating and doesn't share.
Oh, well, that's okay. I got my fake diet Cheerios here too. So
I got my
Um,
Diet Coke, so I'm just in bliss.
yeah, you guys are awesome. Well, anyway, so first of all, what I'd like to hear, I'm really shocked that we have this few people here.
Brandon just showed up.
Brandon's here. Or
Thank
he's getting
goodness.
here. All right, so talk to me about last week, right? So, last week we talked a lot about getting to the closing table, right? We talked, or actually getting to offer accepted. And then Tracy took you guys through negotiation skills last week, which is one of my favorite classes to teach. And let me give you my favorite negotiation tip. Ye who talks first loses. When you're in the middle of a back and forth, whether it's about commissions, whether it's about a negotiate sales price on a house, typical rule of thumb is ye who speaks first loses. Right? And sometimes awkward silences, we just want to fill it in and let it be awkward. So practice that.
Yep.
See, I knew somebody would want to fill in the silence.
That's great.
Okay. I'd really love cameras on today if you guys can, because I got small group in the room. I don't even know if you can see them because the camera's pointing to the other side of the room. I should make you all get up and move.
We just see the
Will you
whiteboard.
guys move over here? Because then they can see you. And the whole purpose of having the camera is so that there's engagement with everybody.
Well.
So today we're talking about getting to the closing table. There is so much work that happens once you go under contract. Right? So last
Margaret?
week we also, go ahead.
Isn't a lot of this what the transaction coordinator does?
Some of it,
Okay.
some of it, right? But as an agent, you need to understand it.
Gotcha.
right? You can't appreciate what a transaction coordinator does if you're don't have a clue of what goes on after the fact, right? Oh, here, I'll take that notebook. You don't have to leave that there. I just dropped my stuff. So yes and no. But you also need to understand the process, because some of this process is what comes first.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't write a contract with dates and deadlines in it if you don't understand what comes first. So we're going to spend a lot of time on that, but great point talking about our transaction coordinators. They truly are. For those of us that use them or are using them currently, they are a huge leverage to us. And I have an agent right now, Sarah McConkey. I don't know if you guys know her, right? But Sarah has always been very frugal, I think is the word that I'll choose to use, right? And in being frugal, it was like, I'll do it all myself. And she's found herself now with a decent amount of business, and she's super busy. She hired one of the transaction coordinators, and now all I hear is, Andy's so great. Andy's so awesome. I don't know how I did this before Andy. Like, I mean, it's just like, and I'm like, oh yeah, for under $400, right? So anyway, it's the joy of owning a business. So, tomorrow, Jody's going to take you through, I think, the most important part of the transaction, and that's after the transaction. If we think about what we teach you in your businesses, and we talk about it in coaching all the time, we are a relationship business. Yes.
Yes.
Let me tell you this. You spend enough time with your buyers, you miss them.
Aw.
They spend enough time with you, they miss you. Right? Sometimes, my goodness, there was, when you take buyers out 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 weekends in a row, you kind of get to know them.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you don't see each other. Feels like you broke up.
Oh.
Right?
Well,
But then you go through the transaction together, right? You help, you're still leading them. So you're still in communication with them. You have this huge celebration at the end called closing, and then you don't see them or talk to them again.
Aw.
Our statistics are 80% of people interviewed said they would use the same agent again. And yet less than 50% do. Do you know why that happens?
they lose touch.
The agent didn't do their job after the transaction. They were a transaction-based business instead of a relationship-based business. Right? And it takes, and someone told me this and I didn't believe it, but I'm going to tell you it's true because I'm seeing it. You will start getting repeat business after 3 or 4 years. So if you guys work your tails off right now in developing relationships, meeting new friends, getting out there and work your tails off, and you start getting some business, what's going to start happening is in 3 or 4 years, the phone's going to go the other way. Hey, Margaret, is now a good time for us to sell the house that we settled on and go buy our dream house? Hey, Margaret, the kids are graduated from high school. We want a smaller house. Hey, Margaret, I want to move to Arizona, right? So you're going to start getting those calls. But in order to get a business that looks like that, you got to put in the time and the work today, which is going to be hard. And right now is the best time, because who's excited about being a realtor? Hopefully every single one of you, right? You're too not to be, right? We haven't had you around long enough to get you tarnished, right? And by the way, I'm still excited about real estate every single day when I get up. Because today would have been a really easy day to stay in bed, but here I am. Okay. So
You missed us. So see?
Well, I would have, right? I had a commitment to you guys, and I'd rather do this than go destage a house. But anyway, don't tell Stacy. Except she's going to watch the recording, so she'll hear me say it. But anyway, that's the point, right? I get up, I'm excited. I love what I do. And that's what I want for all of you guys. So really quick, up to this day, tell me the session that had the biggest impact on you for moving forward into your business. Or maybe it was an activity that we did that made a huge impact. Diane.
March 1st. I gotta look at my head notes. Give me a second. Actually, I will tell you, last Tuesday, I was walking on cloud nine. I was pumped. It was just a great session for me. Everything started clicking. I started seeing connections between all the parts and pieces, the things we had done. And I really, Tuesday was a great day, magical day for me.
Love that.
So there you go. It was all about
Awesome.
the buyers.
Mark.
I love the revelation of the CTME contracts section in Matrix to be able to pull up all the documents and see how to actually do part of session 18 and this one doing the transaction.
Awesome. So Tracy taught you some actual contract work in CTM.
Tracy.
Don't know if it was Tracy. I just know it was last week that I got familiar, got signed up on it, and pulled all the contracts that are relevant.
Awesome. Becky, how about you? What's had the biggest impact on you? Other than getting to meet me, of course.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I think it was just the stories that you guys share. I mean, I don't know if it was the content as much as just the experience. I like hearing the experience.
Okay. Awesome. Brandon, how about you?
I guess a couple things. One, the importance of having a focused, specific, actionable plan for lead generation. Try not to get overwhelmed. You can't do everything, so pick one or two things that you want to do and do those.
Love that.
But then also, just it seems like, I can already kind of see this working. It just seems like, a lot of real estate is just being sociable and going to happy hours or whatever and talking to people. I mean, that's pretty good job.
Exactly, right? I mean, I worked with a guy at level 3 whose wife is a realtor. And I remember having lunch with him and we were just talking in general. And he goes, man, I'm thinking I should just quit this gig and go join my wife in real estate. And I'm like, why is that? And he goes, well, all they do is go to coffee. Right? I loved it. It just made me laugh. It just made me laugh. But yeah, those are great takeaways, right? Is just like be in relationship. Sandy, how about you?
Oh yeah, just every day building my lead generation has changed me completely since the beginning of this course. Whether it be in person or on the phone.
Okay, fabulous. Lizbeth?
For me, just like practicing the practice of the conversations
Okay.
that has helped me a lot because I'm really shy and I'm
Right.
really quiet. So it has helped me like to just know what to say and just, yeah, that was like the biggest part.
That confidence factor, right? That confidence is saying, I know what I'm going to say next, right? And I can see it the way you carry yourself. All right, Jackie, finish us off.
I think there's a lot, but I think the most important is being so intentional with your people and doing things for the right reason. Take the money out of it. I mean, of course, that's important, but I think doing it intentional for the right reason is huge.
Right? Being focused, right? Being intentional. How many of you find yourselves talking to more people today than you did at the beginning of this session 6 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago?
Oh, definitely.
Right? How many of you are more active on Facebook than you were before you started taking this session?
Yeah.
Right? So keep that intentionality going, right? I have to ask, has anyone actually had a buyer or seller appointment as a result of being in Ignite? Becky has, yes. Diane, I think you did, right? That one day we were making calls with Jody, you got a couple appointments.
Well, yeah, I got one with Elliot. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. That's
Still waiting
awesome,
for
you
my
guys.
seller.
Yeah. So, all right. So today we're going to get to the closing table if I can figure out how to get my mouse to work.
Squeak, squeak.
All right. So, like I said, right, last week it was about working with the buyers and the sellers, which I got to do with you. And then Jody, or actually somebody taught for Jody, I don't remember who it was, talked about how to make and receive offers. Absolutely awesome. And then Tracy finished off last week with negotiating offers. This week, we're going to talk about getting to the close, and Jody's going to talk about planning your future and taking what you've learned here. My last comment to all of you is Ignite is not a one and done program. If we started this over again in January, do you think if you came back, you would learn something different?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because you would be in a different place. You wouldn't be, the fire hose would not be gushing as hard as it is now. Right? So I encourage you to come back. Right? Maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Maybe not. You might decide, okay, I'll take Ignite once more, and then I'm going to get my business going under my feet, which a lot of you will. And then you might go to Bold. Right? And Bold is a higher intensity program than Ignite. It's for 8 weeks, and it's a full day session with some of the most amazing coaches we've got in our company. And that program will change you every time I've taken it, all 7 times. All right. So today we're going to talk about timelines. We're going to talk about best practices. We're going to talk about referrals and reviews, post-close follow-up, and then we'll work on our daily success system. So like I said, this is the smallest printout I've had to teach from. When I printed this last night, I was like, Elizabeth, is the printer broken? Because I don't have enough paper. And it was right. So it's all good. So today is about having a successful close, because honestly, not every deal makes it to the closing table. Deals terminate because people's situations change in the middle of a contract. Deals terminate because of inspection. Deals terminate because of appraisal. There's lots of reasons. Our goal is to try and keep them together. Right? Remember, what's the number one thing in the Y4C2Ts?
Every
Top one.
win-win. Everyone.
Win-win or
Nothing.
No deal.
no deal.
No
Right?
deal.
Win-win or no deal. By the way, that's, oh, you couldn't see me. So the dance, remember I told you about the dance? Okay, I can't figure out how to turn my camera around. So when you do the win-win, no deal, it's literally, hold on, I'm gonna see if I can get it turned around so y'all can see me. Not that you want to see me. Hi,
All right. Okay.
here I am. So if you do the win-win, no deal, now I got to do it up high so you can see my hands, but you do this part at the waist level. It's win-win or no deal. Mark did it with us up in Vail. Win-win or no deal, right? I should have Mark teach the dance.
Mark.
Dance.
I actually
You know what?
videotaped it.
That
I
would
videotaped
be
it.
great.
Maybe
Mark,
you all can do it at happy hour.
that's what I
okay.
was about to say. Mark gets to do it at happy hour. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, exactly, right? So remember, we talked about our 6 core competencies that we were going to walk away from this program. And number 5 is coordinate the sale to closing. It is a skill that requires organization and lots of negotiation. Right. So today we're going to talk about transaction timelines, which honestly, you guys starts when you write the offer. Right. And then best practices to avoid risk and ways to identify to follow up after closing to build your business. So I'm going to do a little bit of what Jody's going to do tomorrow, I think. So real estate transactions aren't particularly trouble-free. It's strenuous and trying time that requires all the attention and effort you can command. They're not trouble-free. Every transaction has a hiccup, or a speed bump is the words I use to describe it. So I set this expectation with my buyers and sellers at the very beginning, way back in the consultation. And I'll say, every transaction has some level of speed bump. We don't know where it's going to show up, and we don't know how big it's going to be. But as long as both parties are striving for the same thing, seller wants to sell, buyer wants to buy, everything is figure outable. So have that conversation with your clients, right? Have that conversation with yourself, right? It takes some practice and some history to when something comes across and you go, oh my God, what am I going to do? Right? Right now I'm dealing with moisture in a crawl space and we can't figure out where it's coming from. In my early days, it would have been so easy for me to go, oh my God, this deal's going to completely fall apart. This buyer's not going to trust us and they're going to terminate it. I don't know what we're going to do. That would have been Margaret of 2014 and 2015. Margaret of 2022 says, okay, I don't even know who to call first, but I'm going to start calling people I know and see if I can figure this out. Right? A week later, it's been a week. A week later, we now know that we have a clogged French drain. By the way, did you all know you're supposed to clean your French drains once a year?
No,
You're supposed to clean your French drains because this house was built 20 years ago and nobody ever knew that.
yikes.
So we have a clogged French drain.
What is that?
So a French drain is a water system where it's in the ground and it takes the water and shoots it away from the house.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got downspouts
20
going into the French drain and it takes the water away. Well, one of them is clogged. So when you have a clogged French drain, guess what happens? The water doesn't go anywhere, it pools. And then if a snake or a little animal was starting to dig a little hole underneath something, all of a sudden now there is a place for the water to start finding its way underneath the house. Okay, now it all makes sense, right? It's all fixable. But a week ago, it was, oh my God. Right? So that's all I'm going to say is that just know that everything's figure outable, right? And it's part of the process.
And
Okay.
hey, if you're selling a house that's 130 years old, there's a different set of problems.
Absolutely. Old electrical, old plumbing, old foundations. You won't have any problems with yours. You guys remodeled that to the hilt.
Yep.
All right. So timelines.
Sure.
Right. So we're going to build some timelines and then we're going to talk about how to work them. So just as a lead doesn't make the person your client, getting someone under contract doesn't mean you're getting a closing deal or getting paid. So don't spend those paychecks till closing day. There are several steps in the process where a deal can fall apart. We talked about that. I think most of you have bought and sold at least one home. Is that true? Most of you? Okay. So, you know, it takes some time, right? Every house I've ever bought and sold has had problems as well, right? A lot of people work together to make the closing happen. You've got you, the realtor. You have the realtor, your co-op broker on the other side, and you guys are the conductors. One of the things that I'm going to say about the co-op broker is they are not the enemy. As real estate agents, we all have the same goal, which is what?
Get to the close.
Getting our clients to the closing table, right? Now, does that mean that the other agent and you have to always agree on everything? No, because you have two different sets of priorities. One, well, you're representing your client, they're representing their client. You might have conflicting interests. But by not getting emotional, and I love the line, right? Don't tie your emotions to the transaction. As a realtor, we have to keep our emotions between the lines, right? Because if you sound panicked and you're talking to your client, now who did you just panic? Your client, right? And I got to tell you, buying and selling a house is very stressful. Even buying one myself in February, as a realtor and someone who's bought and sold many, many homes, I was still under a high degree of stress. And fortunately, I have a business partner who sometimes had to be the realtor and I was the client, at least how she talked to me. Okay. So just to understand that even someone like me who's been in the business for a long time, has bought and sold many homes, I still had a lot of stress. So it's our job to manage the stress and not create confusion. Okay. If you do those things well, you're going to rock this thing. So, deadlines. Okay. We are going to go through, I believe you have in your workbook a document that says contract timeline. And Mark is the king of telling us what page that's on.
About around 290.
290. Wow, we're almost to the end.
289, 290.
Okay. So, we're going to create a timeline as we go through this, right? And I need to read this because if I screw this up, I'm going to confuse you guys bad. So we're going to draft multiple timelines. We're going to do some buyer timelines. We're going to do some seller timelines. But first, we're going to focus on the deadlines in the contract. Okay, so I'm going to pull up a copy of the contract. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but we're going to figure this out. All right, so I'm going to do that. All right, I'm probably going to just do this the way I want to. So on this particular transaction, okay, because if I go to the whiteboard, none of you are going to see this. So I may just do this. Hold on a minute. This is where Margaret gets to practice her screen sharing. Okay, why can't you see? Okay, so we're gonna do this. But then you guys can't see it. Okay, never mind. We're not gonna do that. Sorry, guys. I'm not used to playing with multiple screens and it drives me crazy. So, did it wrong again. Let's try again. We want screen 2, which is here. Oh, I know why. Okay, you guys can see my speaker notes when I just did that, didn't you? There we go. Can you see the PowerPoint again the way it should be?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so if we're going to do a contract, okay, and our contract's going to go under contract, we're going to use their dates on September 2nd. Okay, and we're going to do a standard 30-day close, which I love. That it's very similar to what we do. You're going to have a series of deadlines through that particular contract. Okay, and so this is kind of what we're going to start. I don't understand that at all. Hold on. Okay, so who's involved in a transaction?
Everyone.
The buyer, the seller, who else?
The agents, the
The
lender,
agent.
the inspector, the appraisal,
Transaction coordinator.
transaction coordinator.
How about
Title
appraisers?
And the title
Yep.
company.
Title company, that's a good one. Homeowner insurance companies, right? Somebody's gonna have to buy homeowners insurance, right? You could have a deal that has property managers. If you're selling a property that is a rental property, you might have a property management company that's also involved.
Mhm.
You might have tenants involved. Oh, and then there's the dreaded contractors. Right? So there are a gazillion people. And oh, you know who else gets involved in transactions all the time? Friends and family. Parents are the worst. They are the worst. You are guiding this first-time home buyer, and all of a sudden, out of the woodwork, here comes daddy. And
Oh, yeah, and
the
they don't know
kids,
what they're talking, they don't know what they're talking about either. Friend of mine in Virginia
exactly.
was going through a home buying process. She's getting all this advice from her mom. I'm like, actually, none of that is correct. You need to stop talking to your mom.
Exactly. Oh, I know. I've had to have some pretty hard conversations with parents, but you know who else is bad?
Brothers and sisters.
Kids. Adult
Oh,
children of senior parents.
Ooh, yuck.
Oh my God. I'm not sure who's worse, the parents when the kids are in their 20s buying their first home, or the 40 and 50-year-old kids helping mom and dad. Right? So those are all critical things, right? And so when you're doing those consultations, like I will say, especially with buyers, is there anyone else who's not a part of the contract that has a voice in this?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's important, right? So all of those different types of people play a role, right? And they all hit at different times. I've seen so many parents kill transactions at inspection.
Oh,
oh, you know what? That GFCI is missing in the kitchen. You need to terminate that contract. That's not a safe house.
Wait, have you really seen someone terminate for that?
No, but I've heard parents say crap like that.
Yeah. That's so
I
easy.
oftentimes use
fix.
extremes, Brandon, but yes, I have seen parents kill deals over stupid stuff that can easily be fixed. It's amazing. It's it's amazing. All right, so let's build a buyer timeline, shall we?
Yep.
So we know who's involved, right? And we kind of know what they're going to do. So we're going to take that contract format that we had before, and we're going to start filling in the blanks. Okay. So the first thing that's going to happen on what is the first thing if we're working with a buyer that the buyer needs?
Inspection.
Lender.
Inspection? A lender. Hopefully they got the lender before you went under contract.
Oh, well, that's true.
Inspection, I think.
Inspection. Okay. Maybe. We're just going to pull up the answers. So
Thank goodness.
on, yeah, but we're going to talk through these, right? So we get contract accepted on 9/2 and we have a closing on 10/2. So the first thing we need to do is we need to communicate with our buyers on what's happening. Right? So I actually have drafted in my business a standard email template that goes out to every single buyer, and it's got a bunch of fill in the blanks. And it talks about, congratulations, you're under contract. It talks about where to turn in their earnest money and by when. It talks about who the inspectors are, right? So one of the first things it writes in here is inspector list to buyer. Okay. Well, I might send the inspector list with that informational email. So that's the first thing that needs to go to the buyer. Also, buyer's agents. The other thing I would add into that same day is who needs a copy of the contract that's a part of the buy side people involved. Your lender. So you need to get a copy of the contract and the counteroffer to the lender right away.
Hang. Oh, okay. Forget it. Sorry.
So on 9/2 or 9/3, I'm sending an email to the buyer with information that includes a list of inspectors maybe. And I'm sending the contract to the lender so that they have the contract and counteroffer if there is one. Because if the lender doesn't know that you've gone under contract, how do they know what they're working with? Okay. Then the very next step for the buyer is they need to turn in the earnest money. The first 10 days is really critical for buyers. There's a lot that happens. And if you take any of my contracts classes, I teach you to make a lot of the deadlines the same, so it's easier to manage. So they've got a lot to do. So you need to get the earnest money turned in typically 3 days after you go under contract. At the same time that they're turning in the earnest money, you need to determine who the inspector is going to be and schedule a date for the inspection. And then you need to inform the listing agent of when you're doing the inspection so they can get seller approval. So you have to communicate with the listing agent of the timing of your inspection. Then the next step is your inspections, right? This can be, what an inspection can be anything, right? Typically, you see a third-party home inspector who's got general knowledge of everything, goes out and looks at the property. Some buyers will do radon tests. I always encourage a septic scope or a sewer line scope because you can't see that. And if that isn't working properly, you could have big problems and big bills. So I'm going to do my inspection. I'm going to let the listing agent know when we're doing the inspection, and then we're going to do the inspection. Okay. At the same time that you're doing these inspections, you're also receiving documents from the seller. You're receiving disclosure, seller property disclosure, lead-based paint disclosure. So you need to make sure that you're getting those to your buyer for their reviews and signatures. Warning, 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 warning. Lead-based paint. Lead-based paint by the deadline in the contract needs to be signed by the seller, the seller's agent, the buyer, and the buyer's agent.
Yeah.
So make sure you get all 4 of those signatures before that deadline, because if you don't, your contract is automatically voided.
What is the deadline for that, Margaret?
Whatever the deadline is in the contract.
Okay, I didn't know this.
Okay. You're also probably going to be getting title work. Right? There's a great class Land Title teaches. I also think First American teaches it. But how to read a title commitment, please go take that class. Now, as an agent, we are not title experts, right? So when that title commitment hits my desk, I'm checking 2 things. 1, did the title company send it directly to my buyer? And then I read through section B1 and B2 to see if there's anything in there that stands out to me as unique. Typically, the answer is no. And so then I just, reach out to my buyer and say, hey, you received the title work from Chicago Title. Take a look at it. If there's anything that you don't understand, here's who you call the title company for questions, because that's not my level of expertise. Don't try and become a title expert. I've been reading title commitments since 1983, and I still can't tell you what every single thing in them means, because I don't care. Okay. You're probably going to get HOA documents if the property is in an area that has an HOA. Same thing. Did they get to the buyer, or do I need to forward them? And then my email to my client is going to be, today you probably received the HOA documents from Chicago Title. Make sure you read through them. If there's anything you have concerns with, we need to talk. And then in my conversation, when I'm working with buyers around why HOA documents are appropriate, as Brandon will laugh, I always have a story that's extreme, but it will say, read the rules. The rules have to make sense to you that you can live with them. If you just went out and adopted a baby Saint Bernard puppy and the HOA has a rule that no dogs over 70 pounds, I think you might have a problem in the future. Right? I recently did have a client, first time ever, terminate a contract because of the HOA docs. And it was because we learned in the HOA docs that the HOA was in a lawsuit, a counter lawsuit with an insurance company to the tune of $3 million. My buyer's like, too much risk in that. I'm not playing. Okay, so you want them to look through those things. Then you have the inspection. The inspection happens. You work with your client and you create what's called the inspection objection. The inspection objection is the document where the buyer is advising the seller, these are the things I want addressed. And they can address them in a multitude of ways, right? They can address them by having the seller fix them, or they can ask the seller for concessions to pay for they take care of it afterwards. And then you negotiate that inspection resolution. In our current market, right? We still stick to health and safety things. I'm sorry that the paint is chipped on that one corner of the wall. I'm not fixing it. The sellers still aren't doing that. It's still a seller's market. But if you have a radon issue, if you have a roof issue, if you have moisture in a crawl space, right? Things that are true health and safety, those are absolutely appropriate to ask for. But then the decision you have to make with your buyer is, do you want the seller to fix them? Or do you want the money?
Yeah.
I will tell you this, when I'm on the buy side, I want the money. If my buyer has the ability in their closing costs with their lender to get a concession, which means they bring less money to the closing table, and it's not something that will cause us a problem with the appraisal. So I got to think, right? I got to think about that. But if I have a radon issue in a house, I would rather get my client a concession for $1,500 than I would for the seller to put it in.
Yeah.
And the reason why is I have vendors who will do it for less. And then the buyer gets to pick the vendor, right? They don't get to pick Uncle Joe's radon company, right? They actually can pick a true company that does that. Okay. And they usually get more money than it costs them to do it because the seller is willing to give more money to not have the hassle. Make sense? I always want to hire my own contractors. And you're going to laugh because when we go to the other side, I'm going to tell you, I'd rather have my sellers do the work if they can. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to negotiate that inspection resolution based on the inspection resolution deadline. Hopefully by now, your lender, who you also are staying in touch with, has ordered the appraisal. Now, if I'm buying an older house, right? And Brandon's got this beautiful listing. They're under contract now. We're all celebrating that, but it's a very old home. And I might tell my seller, let's get that, or my buyer, let's get that inspection done really, really early. Because if we find something in the inspection that's a potential deal killer, let's pump the brakes with the lender on the appraisal so you're not spending $700 to $800 on a house that's got major structural issues and we're going to terminate. So if I believe there's anything in the inspection that might cause us heartburn, I pump the brakes on the appraisal with the lender to save my client money. Right? Now, once I'm at the inspection, I don't necessarily wait till we have the inspection resolved for the lender to get the green light to order it. But I ask my buyer this question. Based on this inspection, Becky, is there anything here that if the seller said, no, I'm not giving you any money and no, I'm not fixing it, that would cause you to walk away? And if she says no, then we're going to keep going and we're going to get that appraiser out there. If she says, well, Margaret, I don't know what those structural issues are. And if those are big and they're not willing to help me figure out how to fix it, I might. Then I'm going to call the lender and say, we just need to pump the brakes for a couple days. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
The lender orders the appraisal. You as buyer's agents do not order the appraisal. Here's how appraisals used to work. I used to have one. His name was Chet when I was a lender. Hey, Chet, I need you to go out and I need you to do an appraisal on this property and I need it to appraise for at least this much money. That's how it used to be in the good old days. And Chet would normally get me whatever I needed and we would close transactions. And then 2007-8 happened. Today, the lenders don't even talk to the appraisers. Now they put in an order with what's called the appraisal management company. So it's a third-party company and all these appraisers are signed up with this, what they call the AMC. You'll hear that term a lot. AMC, it's the appraisal management company. And they'll put up an order and the appraisers will go, oh yeah, I'll take that house or I'll take that house. And they have no relationship with the borrower, no relationship with any of the real estate agents, and no relationship with the lenders. That's a good thing. Although I miss the days of being able to call up Chet and go, you can't give me $5 grand more. Does it really matter? Okay. So you want to make sure, as far as with your lender, that the appraisal things are happening on time and they're letting you know as soon as possible where things are at. You want to make sure that the appraisal deadline is the deadline in which the appraisal is in the hands of the lender. Not the day they do it, the day it's in the hands of the lender. Then you have your appraisal objection deadline, which is if the appraisal has some kind of issues, you can notify the seller and you start negotiating. When you get an appraisal back, you're looking to hear two things. What's the value? And are there any conditions? A condition in an appraisal might sound like this appraisal is subject to the replacement of the broken window in the basement. This appraisal is subject to the chipped paint being painted. So remember, I was talking about the inspection and I wanted to make sure I put anything in there that would get hit by the appraiser. If I see a broken window or I see chipped paint, I'm going to bring it into my inspection objection so we can get ahead of it. And honestly, if I'm doing that with an FHA or VA, I'm probably talking to the listing agent when I'm up front, because I can usually see a broken window myself. I don't have to be very smart to see those. I can't see radon, but boy, can I see a broken window. And I can look for cheap chipped paint. I know how to look for that when I have an FHA or VA buyer. When you get the call back from the bank, the lender, and they say, you're all good. So we got one yesterday from one of our agents. The house appraised for $45,000 more than the contract price. Can you believe that? $45,000 more than the contract price. It is a great time to be a buyer's agent right now getting appraisals because everybody's looking at what's sold in March and April when the buyers were paying way over what they should have been. And now those are the comps. So we're not seeing a lot of appraisal issues right now. So here's what you do. Let me tell you first what you don't do. Hey, Mark, it's Margaret. Hey, I just wanted to call and let you know we got the appraisal back on Beach Street. And I am so happy to tell you that the appraisal came in $45,000 more than we paid you and your seller for it. And there's no concessions, so we're good to go. Boy, does Mark just feel like a schmuck. He didn't do a very good job for his client. Didn't do a very good job for himself. Probably not what you want to tell the listing agent. So my phone call to the listing agent sounds more like this. Hey, Mark, it's Margaret. Hey, I just want to give you an update on Beach Street. The appraisal came back. I just heard from the lender. We are good on value and there's no conditions. See you at the closing table. Mark feels good, right? He did his job. He doesn't need to know. Now, by the way, if you're the listing agent and some buyer's agent does tell you that you undersold that house by $45,000, don't tell your seller.
Well,
Seller just needs to know we have no issues with the appraisal. Let's keep going.
Will the seller get that report though?
No,
Never.
no, only if somebody gives it to them. And it's owned by the buyer. Sometimes as a buyer's agent, I don't even get them. I usually ask my clients to forward them to me, but most of the lenders out there don't even send them to us. The only time the listing agent's going to get a copy of the appraisal is if there's a problem. Hey, Mark, it's Margaret. Hey, I just want to let you know, Beach Street, that appraisal came in $20,000 less than we're under contract for. My buyer would like to renegotiate the price and we'd like to pay the value of the appraisal. And Mark's going to say, whoa, can you send that over to me? I want to make sure that we've got all the right comps. Well, I'm trying to get Mark and his seller to lower their price. I'm going to give him that appraisal. Right? But if I got more or what we need, they don't need it. They don't care. They really don't care. Brandon, when you sell this house on closing day, are you really going to care what it appraised for?
No.
He's the
I mean, they
seller
can
and
say
the
it
agent.
appraised for $850, but I didn't have any buyers willing to pay $850, so.
Exactly. Because an appraisal is nothing more than an opinion. Okay. So there we have that. Once you get through appraisal, now you're waiting for the clear to close from the lender. If you have a mortgage happening, I like to have that 7 days before the closing date so that if something hiccups, we can extend the loan availability, but don't have to mess with the closing date. So I try and get things done early so that everybody can breathe that last week, especially when sellers are moving out of the house, right? We just want to have it done. Once I'm through inspection, as a buyer's agent, I do two things. I immediately schedule the closing. So even though the inspection is earlier in the process, I schedule the closing. And I'll say to my buyer, what time of day works best for you? Would you prefer a morning or afternoon or lunchtime? And then I get on the title company's calendar for that closing. In the good old days, when buyers and sellers would be together at the closing table, which I would argue is still a lot of fun, you'd call up the other agent and say, hey, we're thinking we want to close in the morning. Does that work for you guys? And you'd figure it out and you get on the title company's calendar. Because if you have a closing on the last day of the month, good luck if you wait till the day before. They're full, they're busy. So get on their calendars early. The other thing I schedule early is the pre-close walkthrough. You want your buyers to walk that house one last time before you go to the closing table. I recommend, this is Margaret's recommendation, that you do that. I like to do mine the day before. So most of my closings are in the morning or early afternoon, and I do the walkthrough the day before. Some agents like to do it on the way to the closing table. Well, let me tell you a couple of stories. And by the way, neither one of these are my stories, but they're Debbie DeWitt's stories, and I get to tell them. So the first one is Debbie's out with her buyer and they're doing the pre-close walkthrough. And in the kitchen where the refrigerator used to be, and by the way, the contract said the seller was taking the refrigerator with them. And they walked in and there's a great big hole in the wall that goes directly out to the garage. So she calls the listing agent and she said, hey, we have a problem. And the listing agent says, but that's the space where the refrigerator goes. It won't be a problem because it'll fill that in. And she goes, no, I get it. You took the refrigerator. There is a hole in the wall between the kitchen and the garage. That is a fire problem. That is a safety problem. There are gas fumes in garages. There are critters in the garages. This needs to be done. And the listing agent, she ended up sending him a picture, I think. Well, come to find out, and yes, they did get it fixed prior to closing because you can't have a wall with a hole in it between the garage and the house that goes all the way through. Like you could literally walk through it, you guys. That's how big it was. Well, come to find out, the seller was a craftsman and he had made this gorgeous canoe in the basement. And when they went to bring the handcrafted canoe up out of the basement, the canoe was so long that when they brought it up, they couldn't turn it to get it out of the stairs. So they just cut a hole in the wall and took it straight out to the garage. Okay, I had one I did for Debbie. She had some stuff going on. And so I took her buyers out to the pre-close walkthrough. And as I'm driving up to Brighton, I get a phone call from Debbie and she said, hey, you're going to need to take a look at this. The seller's agent just called. And when the seller was moving out the washer and dryer, they found a small leak. So just kind of take your assessment on that. Okay. These were first-time home buyers, by the way. And so we get out there and, we pull up and the sellers are all outside with the moving trucks and they both come running to my car. Like you would have thought I had candy and they were 8 years old, how fast they ran to my car. And they said, we found this leak and we're going to get it fixed and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay. So I'm walking in with the buyers and I'm telling them, this is what they're saying, but we're going to take a good look. So I walk into the laundry room and they're showing me where the leak was. And I was like, okay, but I'm looking at the drywall behind this and it is soaked, soaked. So then I went and stepped over where the washer and dryer had been and the floor went like this. Oh, you can't see me. It like fell underneath my weight. Like it was moving. So we finished the walkthrough through the house. I pulled the buyers. We went outside because the sellers are hovering, right? Like they're hovering like there's no tomorrow. So I pulled the buyers aside and I actually had to put them in my car so the sellers would leave us alone. And I said, look, you guys, I don't think you should close. This is bigger than just a small drip. This is big. Like there's some structural stuff going on here. They ended up delaying closing for a week for the seller to get the floor replaced, to get the drywall fixed, to get the drywall painted, to get the leak stopped. It wasn't a small leak and it had been going on for a long time. Importance of a pre-close walkthrough. Was there a question?
I was going to ask, so that wasn't in the seller's disclosure?
They didn't know about it till they moved the washer out, they claimed. It's possible. I mean, we find things all the time that aren't in the seller's property disclosure, right? I mean, here's the deal, you guys. You could have a homeowner that takes meticulous care of their home, and there's things they don't know, right? They don't know that the sewer line has a problem. They might not know that you're supposed to clean out French drains, and they have a moisture problem in their crawl space because we had 4 different vendors out looking at that crawl space. 2 out of the 3 said, this is so totally normal, you don't have to do anything. 1 wanted a $14,000 basement replacement. Like they wanted to dig internal French drains. And one of them said, this is normal, but I think you do have water coming in, and I think it's a clogged French drain. And he ended up being the one that was right. But the seller didn't know because they're like saying, well, so a little moisture gets in there. We don't smell it. We don't go crawling in our crawl space every day. It had vapor barriers on it. So sometimes you just don't have things that are on that disclosure because you don't know. Okay. The other thing I like to do, this is a Margaret best practice. You can do what you want to do, but there is a form at closing that's completed by the buyer. It's called the TD 1000. I had to think for a minute. The TD 1000 is a document that goes to the county assessor's offices in the state of Colorado. And that assessor's office uses that information along with the sale prices of homes to determine what the taxable assessed value is going to be of homes in a neighborhood. So if you're in a neighborhood that has a bunch of tract homes and they're all selling 725, 730, 700, 740, and then all of a sudden you have one that sold for 800, and it's the exact same house, exact same timelines. The assessor might want to know what's going on here, right? On the same token, they might have one that sold for 600. Well, so how do they figure out how that plays into the math? So they will take this TD 1000 and they will look at it because they want to know, let's pretend the one that sold for 800,000 included a brand new Porsche. They might want to know it inflated the purchase price because there was a Porsche involved, right? Or maybe the house that was being purchased had been damaged in a fire or had it was a former meth lab. And so the condition of that house was just like almost scrape level versus everything else was above average and good. Right? So when and what they put on there is most of the time the title company will fill most of it out. But the sections that the title company will give to you, the buyer's agent, is 3 sections. And I can't remember the numbers on them, but one section is what personal property was included in the sale price of this home. Well, it's the appliances, right? Appliances are always there. You don't have to put dishwasher, refrigerator. You don't have to be specific. You can just write appliances, floor coverings, window treatments, hot tub. Although I would argue a hot tub has 0 value. Okay. Then they're going to ask you for a value of those personal property items. Some of these buyers get so sideways about this form. I don't know what a 1970s avocado green refrigerator is worth. Like, I don't know. Right? I don't know what that dishwasher is worth. I don't know what I don't know, the fancy ice machines or anything, right? I don't know. And if you're dealing with somebody who's got the avocado green refrigerator and you're in a joint conversation in front of the seller, you don't want to say, it's so old, it ain't worth crap. They should be paying you to take it away. Right? Or you don't want your buyer to come blurting that out, right? Because that seller, that stupid thing might be super nostalgia to them. And you don't want to, that's no way to end a transaction. So what I do is I talk to my buyers at the pre-close walkthrough. And I say, by the way, there's a form tomorrow. And in the form, it's going to ask us what personal property came with the property. So if we look at the contract, it's this dishwasher, it's this refrigerator, it's right. I go through the whole thing. And they're like, yeah, that's right. And I said, so when we fill that out, we're just going to write appliances. And then it's going to ask you for a value. And so I want you to kind of think about that before you get to the closing table, right? And when we think about value, think resale. Okay. If you were going to go buy these appliances on the market today in the condition they're in, what would you expect to pay for them or get them if you were selling them? Think garage sale, think Craigslist, think Facebook Marketplace. You will have some buyers who will go and research the model numbers of each of those appliances and find out what the resale value is. True story. You will have other ones that go, can we just write down like $2,000? I'm like, yeah, if you think that's what it's worth, that's fine. But this way your buyer is prepared for that. The other question that they will ask the buyer to identify is, what's the condition of the property being purchased? Well, if it's a new build, it's new. If it's a scrape, it's scrape, and then you have everything in between. So I prep them for that as well. And then what I tell them at the pre-close walkthrough is, tomorrow when we get to the closing table, when they hand me this form to talk to you, I'm just going to say, this is the form we talked about last night. And then I will lead them to, here's the part about the personal property. They already know how to fill it out. I don't have to embarrass the seller. I don't have to sit there for 20 minutes while my client's on Google trying to figure out what stuff is worth. It just smooths it out. So there's a best practice for you. I hope that was valuable. Closing, make sure that your client knows they need to bring their driver's license. Make sure your client knows they need to bring money, and it cannot be a personal check. It needs to either be a cashier's check or wire. And if you have a client that is paying more than $50,000 at closing, check with the title company. Does it have to be a wire transfer? Because sometimes the answer is yes, it does. Okay. The other thing I do between clear to close and a couple of days before closing is I will get a copy of the settlement statement from the title company. And I will send that to my buyer, and I will say, attached is the settlement statement from the title company. This should match the numbers your lender gave you. If you have any questions about it, let me know. My expectation for us as buyer's agents is that we look at them, validate them. Did that seller concession hit the credit for your buyers? Did they prorate HOA fees? Did they prorate taxes? 99.9%, the title company nailed it with the lender. Typically, when there's a mistake, it's because neither agent, buyer or seller's agent, sent an amendment to the contract to the lender and or the title company to let them know there was a $7,000 seller concession that was negotiated as part of the inspection. So make sure as you're going through this, you are constantly sending any contract amendments that are relevant to the closing to the lender and to the title company. Now, if it's a amend extend to push out an inspection resolution, I'm probably not sending them that one. But if it has to do with the financials or a material deadline like the closing date or the appraisal deadlines, I'm sending that to both of them. Questions?
Is there a checklist in here?
Well, you just created one. So in Command, there are some basic checklists, but remember, Command was written for a global company, but you can create your own checklists as you go through this, right? So the purpose of this was to kind of help you guys start to build out that timeline. Here would be my rule of thumb. And yes, I could give you the timelines that we use in Margaret Gate Homes, and you're all going to go, but you've got so many handwritten notes and gifts and everything else in there. Why would I don't want to do that. So what I do is I would say, start with the contract. And where are your dates and deadlines in your contract? Right? Because those are the most important, right? They're not suggested deadlines. Those are deadlines. And then what is your communication path for every step?
Gotcha. No.
Okay. So great question. But yes, I also do teach a skills lab with some checklists in it. Good question. What other questions do you have?
So I have a question. So you keep referring to the dates in the contract, but you set those, right?
Yes. When we make the offer, we absolutely enter the dates and deadlines in the contract. But now you have to remember what you set.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
And so how do you set those then? I guess, you know, I mean, you put in the date of the offer, and then you put in the date of the closing, and then you just, like, how do you know how many days takes it? You know what I mean? Like, how do you set those?
Okay. So first of all, if you haven't taken a contracts class, take a contracts class on how to do the contract to buy and sell. And by the way, take them multiple times. If you guys ever get the opportunity to take Kevin's 4-hour CE class on contract to buy and sell, that's called How to Stay Out of Jail. Awesome class. Many of the title companies, Becky, have a guide that
Okay.
says earnest money 3 days, title delivery 7 days, title objection 10 days, right? There's that. And then there's best practices that you learn from experienced agents. All of those things. There's actually a contracts class that's being taught in early November by Sue Venzel. Sue used to be the productivity coach at Avenues, but she's actually an approved instructor for Damian Cox, who is our attorney for all 3 of our offices. And she teaches an all-day Saturday. It's 8 hours. And it's 8 CE credits. So if you want to hammer out some CE credits, it's a great class to take. But she goes in depth into the buyer agency, the exclusive right to sell, and the contract to buy and sell. So if you want to spend a Saturday working on contracts, I would encourage you to take that class. You can find it on coxeducation.com. And I think it's either the first or second Saturday in November. I can't remember which. It's November 12th. Okay. There we go.
Is it on the calendar list?
Yeah.
Great class. You have to pay for it. I'm not gonna lie, you gotta pay for it, but you will really get some really great, it's a great way to just get an all-day comprehensive look at contracts. And Sue's a really good instructor. Okay. So I think I went past this. I did. I went so beyond all of this stuff. So common interaction and communication points. I think this is a great slide because you want to be constantly thinking about what communication do I need to do? My favorite communication is the what's next email. So Brandon, I think you are on, have you been getting emails from me about things that are going on with your seller?
Just the one, but yeah, I don't.
Okay. So you just got thrown into it. So I've actually developed smart plans that go out to you guys, the agents, that say to you, congratulations, your seller or buyer are under contract. Here's what you should be watching for next. And then 2 or 3 days later, you'll get another one that says, okay, so your buyer's probably turned in the earnest money. This is what you should be doing next. And I'm always giving you 2 or 3 steps in the future because I don't know where you are in your contract, right?
Yeah. Oh, I got the one email from you with the 8 steps.
Yep. You'll be getting more of them, right? So what if you built something like that into your timelines, right? For your clients, right? So if we go back and we look at this timeline, okay, if I said, okay, on 9/2, I need to send the inspector list to the buyer's agent or to the buyer, right? Well, should I send him an email? Like, is there a communication point here? Is there a communication point here? Like, where do you want to communicate? Yes, that is the right one, Diane. What do I want? Where do I want to put some communications with my client, right? Definitely going to communicate when we go under contract. I'm definitely going to communicate after the inspection is done. I'm definitely going to communicate once we have the appraisal back, and I'm definitely going to communicate about pre-close walkthroughs. Okay. But there might be other places, right? I literally do I have time on my calendar blocked every Monday and every Friday communication with my clients. If I am under contract with a buyer and or a seller during those times, I am reaching out to them, even if I don't have anything to tell them. So what does that look like in your business? Okay. Come on. So communication of deadlines, communication of the contract to the other parties, lender and buyer communication, communication of lists, scheduling, sending of amendments. I talked through a lot of this, right? Additional questions to ask yourself. I have a Margaret's 10 commandments in my notes to my buyers. I am reminding them it is now not the right time to go buy a car. I am reminding them to not apply for credit, even if Kohl's will give you 100% off that credit card for applying for charges. I remind them to not quit their job or even turn in their notice, right? Like I'm reminding them of things because I will tell you they're going in such a life transition right now. And I will tell you more buyers have lost houses because they went out and bought a new car in the middle of the transaction. Well, if I can get approved for a $700,000 house, this $80,000 car is nothing. Right? Also, I like this one. Andy does this all the time. I don't even remember it, right? Communicating about setting up the utilities. Do you have an email that goes out to your buyers prior to closing that says you're going to need to schedule utilities? The water and sewer will be taken care of by the title company, but you're going to want to make sure you get the Excel power turned on. And depending on where you are in the metro area, it's not always Excel. You get up in Erie, they got 2 different providers they can choose from. So do you give them a list? Here's the contact information for power. Here's the contact for gas. They may not always be the same. Here's your contact for cable. Here's your contact for the post office, like whatever. What are you giving your buyer to help them start thinking about, oh yeah, I'm moving. I might need to turn the utilities on. Okay. What about holidays? We want to think about the holidays in advance, but I cannot tell you how many people, I had a builder schedule a closing on Thanksgiving because they don't work by a contract. I called her up and said, no one's going to be there. Need to change the date. Okay. Great communication points there. Documentation points, right? Is there a document that needs to be created? Who gets the document? Who signs the document? Where do I have to send it? Is there a plan to follow up after the document's been sent? Example. Sent the inspection objection to the listing agent. Did they get it? Inspection resolution might be in 2 days. I want to make sure they got it and they're working on it. And here's my favorite one. Are there templates that you can create to save you time? And the answer is yes. Create some email templates. You can create email templates in CTM. You can create email templates in your email server. Gmail has a way to do that. I'm still an old school corporate girl, so I use Outlook, but you know, there are ways that you can build templates so you don't have to always rewrite it. Right? If nothing else, save them in Word so it's a copy and paste. And then make the appropriate changes, right? So any way you can do that, take a CTM class. CTM talks a lot about how to use the templates in their system as it relates to emails. So I can literally click a button that says inspection objection, and it automatically populates everything in the body of the email. I don't have to write it every time. Okay. So these are great times, even though you guys maybe have never closed a transaction before, but hopefully this class and today's session will help you go, but if I had a buyer based on that timeline Margaret laid out, how would I want to document my customer experience? And how am I going to manage it? Because I am going to tell you, if I told you all, if we walked in today and I said, congratulations, you guys all got your first buyer under contract, whoop, whoop. How many of you are ready? Or how many of you just went into pure panic? Most of you went into pure panic, right? So the goal of this is to help you not go into pure panic, have an idea of what's coming ahead, right? And then start planning your plan of action. Okay. Questions?
Yeah, I have one. You know, CTM e-contracts builds that calendar for you and gives you like a little checklist with the dates. But I noticed you didn't mention that. You know,
Well, thank you for doing that because I don't use that. Because for two reasons. One, I have a transaction coordinator and I don't need multiple forms of communication coming into my email. So if I've got my TC notifying me of upcoming deadlines, I don't need a duplicate email from CTM. And I have a second set of eyes managing the transaction. That is absolutely a great tool. So thank you. And when you do amendments that change your deadlines, you need to make sure that you're updating that calendar. So yes, great question. Great question. Okay. Anything else? Oh, what did I do? Okay. So this is that finished buyer timeline. Okay. Hold on. Let me figure out where I'm at here because I jump all over the board. You guys know that. But I don't know why it didn't do this. Okay. We're missing some slides today. Okay. So talk to me about ahas. Any?
There's a lot I don't know about the contracts.
Okay. That's a big one,
Timeline.
right? That's a big one. Okay. The same. Exactly. Exactly. All right, let me figure out, because like I said, I bounced all over the place here. Maybe I'm going the wrong way. Okay. Hold on. Oh, I see what it did. Okay. All right. Now, if you look at the bottom half of this slide, the buyer one that we just created is up on top. Yes. Okay. But now they've added at the bottom this is so weird. Okay. So the seller timeline's a little different, right? When you're the listing agent, you have a lot less to keep track of. Okay. On 9/2, when you go under contract, you need to update the MLS. Right? Make sure that you show it under contract and make sure you're following the timelines in the rules. The other thing that you need to do that's not on this document here is that you also need to send the contract and any amendments or counter offers to the title company. You need to trigger the title insurance because in Colorado, that's a seller initiated activity. Then you kind of just wait for the buyer's agent to tell you when the inspection is. And then you notify the seller, hey, the buyer wants to come out and do the inspection on this time. You need to be gone for 3 to 4 hours, blah, blah, blah. I always let my sellers know when the earnest money receipt comes across my email because that's such a big one. Once I get the inspection objection from the buyer's agent, I'll call my seller and go over it. Unless there's practically nothing on it, I do not just email it to them. They can get very emotional. What do you mean there's something wrong with my house? They're crazy. That roof's been on there 50 years. It's never leaked. Why are they asking for a new one, right? It's much easier to talk than it is to just provide it to them. Then when the appraiser reaches out to me, the listing agent, when they want to do the appraisal, I'm going to contact my seller and let them know that. In the event we get notice that the seller's appraisal came in low, then we're going to work through it. We're going to have a conversation. And then I'm going to review the settlement statement and I'm coming to the closing table. Much less communication when you're dealing with a seller. Okay, makes sense. Command has opportunity management in it. Take the class from Chris. Right, I'm pushing Chris right now to make sure that we're going over this, that the command is just about contacts. So learn how to use the opportunity feature in Command, and besides, if you don't use Command for anything else, you have to put the contract in Command to get paid. So there's checklists associated with this, and Chris can teach you all of that. Okay. So there's a lot to learn when you're dealing with the timelines in a contract, right? I kind of flew through the seller side because so many of it's repetitive from the buyer. But when you're on the seller side, you're a lot more reactionary to what the buyers are bringing forward to you than actually being proactive, other than getting the title and HOA docs out. Now, as the agent on the seller side, you also need to make sure you send the disclosures to the buyer's agent. What questions do you guys have? Ask me anything.
I guess I'm not really sure what you mean by the contract has to be in Command to get paid. I haven't gotten that far yet. I mean, and really Jody can walk me through it later, but I just was curious about that.
That's fine. So part of Command is our compliance for our offices. So in Command, you upload the documents into the compliance portion. And when you have a contact, you create an opportunity. When the opportunity goes under contract, that triggers the compliance portions of what we do, and it creates what's called your CDA, Commission Distribution Authorization. So you actually put into Command how much the purchase price was, what the commission rate was, how much gross commission you're going to make, what your company dollar split are, your royalty, coaching fees, what other deductions you have.
Okay.
So if you don't put it in Command, you ain't getting paid.
Got it.
Okay. So
Margaret,
utilize those tools that are there to help you management, especially if you're not using a TC. Go ahead, Mark.
could you please show the seller timeline slide one more time?
Of course.
Thank you.
Yep. It's going to mark the listing as pending. The same day I'm going to order the title work. And then right behind sending the title work, I'm going to send the disclosures that the seller completed, the seller property disclosure, the lead-based paint disclosure, source of water disclosure, square footage disclosure. I'm going to send all those over to the buyer. Then I'm going to inform the seller when they call and tell me to schedule the inspection. Then I'm going to schedule the conversation based on what the inspection resolution is. I'm going to advise them of the appraisal timing. We'll talk through any issues with the appraisal. We'll schedule the closing, kind of that same timeline. I schedule the closing around the inspection. Right before closing, I let them know there's going to be a walkthrough. I also review the seller's settlement statement with them. I look at it, make sure it all makes sense. Got it? Okay, perfect. All right. So we learned there's a whole lot more than just getting them under contract. Is that our big aha today? Yeah. Yep, it definitely is. So let me ask you this. Where do you think the deal is the most vulnerable to fall apart?
Right after inspection?
That inspection.
Inspection is a big one. Absolutely. Right. We could tell story after story after story on that one. How do you make sure that that doesn't happen?
Maybe set expectations early.
Exactly, right? We talked about that, right? Like, what do I tell my clients from the very beginning? There's a speed bump in every transaction. Right? This is where we become educators, right? And I love number 3, right? So it talks about communicate clearly and often, right? And one of the hardest parts is when you don't understand what the problem is, right? And I will tell you, I'm going through that right now, like moisture in a crawl space. And this is new and dear to my heart right now because I'm going through it, right? I don't even know where to start. I didn't know where to start. I know a lot more now. But to continually ask questions so that you understand it, right? Because if you don't understand it, how can you guide? Now, I'm not asking you to go out and be structural engineers. But the one thing, and I'm very blessed to have an amazing agent on the buyer side as well, we kept saying, what we're hearing just doesn't sound logical, right? So you just keep poking and prodding and asking questions of experts and people who know more than you do until all of a sudden it makes sense. Okay, set expectations up front. I love that one. And number 3, stay professional. Right? I think those are the most important, because if you are unprofessional to the other side, they're not going to want to work with you. Right? If you're unprofessional with your client, well, that's a whole nother conversation. Right? But everything is figure outable. It's my favorite saying. So when you are working on timelines with a customer, right? Always be prepared for where is the deal at risk and what can I do to keep it alive? And I truly believe, you guys, that communication with your client is the number one thing. If they always know what's coming next, it gets easier because they trust you, right? There is nothing worse than picking up the phone and surprising your client. Oh, wait a minute. What do you mean they did it on inspection on my vacant property? I didn't know they were doing an inspection. Be very easy to schedule an inspection if it's vacant, not even tell your client, right? Not recommended. Okay. Places where other places where you got risk. What happens if they don't the buyer doesn't turn in their earnest money? What happens if the appraisal doesn't come through? Right? So some best practices for keeping them alive: pricing your home correctly, maintaining a good relationship with the agent on the other side. If I'm the buyer's agent and I've just been at the inspection and there's not anything major there, I might shoot a text. Just wrapped up the inspection, no deal killers here. Right? Or if there is a potential deal killer, I might pick up the phone and call that listing agent and say, hey, we're just wrapping up the inspection. Hey, I just want to let you know the sewer scope is indicating that we might have a break. I don't have the report yet for you, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. Now, that listing agent may not call their seller right away, but how is that your level of professionalism as a buyer's agent when you're saying, hey, I just want to give you a heads up? And if I haven't told this group before, if you're at an inspection and you find a gas leak, will you please call the listing agent right away and tell them, and don't wait 5 days? Especially if there's little kids living in the house. Okay. Be the fiduciary. Always act in your client's best interest, even when it's a conflict of your own. For some of you, this first transaction, when it closes, is more money than you've ever seen in a single paycheck in your life. And if you have a deal that's starting to fall apart and in your brain, you're saying, man, we're going to have the best Christmas ever. The kids are going to Disneyland. We are having a say no to nothing day at Disney World or a whole week. And your deal starts falling apart about December 10th. It would be really easy to be more worried about disappointing your children than helping your client, even if it's in your client's best interest to terminate the contract. See that? You're human. I'm going to give you that grace. We're all human. I remember when my very first transaction canceled, the first one, I thought my world was coming to an end. And we went back, we got back under contract. We ultimately closed a week later than we originally planned. But you gotta always maintain that. Okay. Hardest thing in the world to do. All right. I'm not doing these. Okay. I told you, I said at the very beginning that about 3 to 4 years, you're going to start seeing a lot of more referrals and a lot more repeat business, right? So how do we turn our business into one that's repeats and referrals? So what I want to talk about a little bit is how we can lead generation for more business through client reviews. So, you know, our biggest opportunity is repeat business. I was looking at some information when, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I just went back through every client I ever did a transaction with, which was a list. And I started recognizing there's this one client every year we do something. We either buy them a house, we sell them a house. A lot of times they sell in the fall or they buy in the fall and then they get the house that they moved out of ready and we sell it in the first quarter. So there's this one client I've literally done a transaction with every year since 2016. Of course, I'm dying now that they're moving to Kentucky. I'm like, oh, that hurt. Okay. Referral business. There is nothing better than having your client refer you to somebody else because you took such great care of them. And the biggest way to help you with that is your client reviews. So asking for referrals at every conversation. Every conversation. Don't wait till the closing table. When they say to you, oh, Lizbeth, I thank you so much for all the work you did on that inspection resolution. We would have never known what to do if we didn't have you. What are you gonna say? Thank you. That's a good start. Okay. Thank you. I'm so glad you feel good about that. I know I did too. And so did the other side. You know, that's just a small sampling of, you know, how I treat everybody. And so, you know, remember, if there's anybody that you know that I can help and, you know, guide them the way I've guided you, please make sure, you know, that you let me know who they are and to give them my contact information. Right. There's actually a script out there that some teams and some agents use. That's the promise script. And the promise script, I don't have it nailed because I don't use it that way, but you're going to be so happy with the services that I provide that by the end of this transaction, you will have referred 2 friends, family, or coworkers to me to service them as well. Set the expectation up front. You need referrals. Who else can we help? For those of you that are in avenues right now, right, we're going out and we're reaching out to people, asking them who can benefit from this book, Your First Home. If you just closed a property with a first home buyer, ask them, who do you know that I could give this book to that would find value in this? Because I tell you, if they're buying their first home, so are their friends. So are their friends. You just have to stay with it, right? So throughout the conversation, you're always reminding them your base of your business is your referrals. A lot of brokers will actually write that on the bottom of every email. My business is based on your referrals. There's all kinds of different taglines that you can use with that. And then most importantly, at the close of the transaction, right? I put social media, and I think Sally taught you guys a lot about social media, right? But when I have a closing, I always have a picture of my client in front of the house and I tag them with their permission, of course, but I tag them because I want their friends and family to see they just bought a house because I'm a rock star. And I want them to call me. Okay. Asking for referrals. The other thing is, so here's some of those. So there's some of these in the participant guide. So we'll actually do these. My business relies on referrals. If you know anyone that is looking to buy or sell, I'd be so grateful if you could let me know. Practice that one, right? I like this one. I would appreciate the opportunity to help your friends and family members buy or sell their homes. I would appreciate. I intend to build a relationship of trust between us so that when you think of real estate, you think of me. If you wouldn't mind, please tag me on social media anytime one of your friends posts about needing a real estate agent. How many of you guys are in neighborhood groups and somebody will go, anybody know a realtor? And you see the same names popping up. You guys ever see that in your neighborhood on next door? How do you get your friends and neighbors to do that and make that your name? Here it is. I'm going to offer you an amazing service for you to refer me to your friends and family. If you don't, I'm going to feel I did something wrong and would need to talk to you about what to do better. Ooh. Start that buyer consultation with that one, right? Where do you get client reviews? Where do you think you would be great places to get client reviews? On your business Facebook page, yeah? Where else?
Google reviews.
Google My Business. If you don't have a Google My Business page set up, make that as one of your top action items when you get your 12 hours a week back. Right? You guys have gotten in the practice of setting aside 4 hours a day to work on your business. Make this one of the activities is get a Google My Business page set up. That's my favorite one to get my reviews on. Where else? It's a dirty word that starts with Z.
So,
Zillow. Unfortunately, the consumers still think Zillow is the end all be all. I don't send a lot of my clients out to Zillow, but I try and get 1 or 2 every year to add an updated review out there just so I'm active. So that if John Q consumer who doesn't know me goes out there, they at least see I have a presence. So I use Zillow to provide validity to the people who don't know me. But I prefer Google My Business. Because when Google does a search and says, best real estate agent in Arvada, Colorado, and I've got 30 5-star reviews, do you think I trump somebody who doesn't? The answer was yes. Okay. So get those reviews. Have a process. Have a process with your clients, right? And honestly, again, go walking away from the closing table and then sending them an email saying, hey, would you be so kind to post a client review? They're a little busy the day after closing. Right? They're packing, they're unpacking. They got movers coming everywhere. They're trying to figure out where to set the sofa. Doing your client review is not the top of their list. However, if you have a buyer that had a very difficult budget and you just got them under contract on the purchase of their dream home, would that be a great time for them to ask them for a review? Nobody said you had to complete the transaction to get a review. What would that look like? Sandy just got us under contract for our dream house. She made it so simple. We can't wait to close. Didn't say, Sandy's awesome. We're living in our new house, right? They think she's the cat's meow right now when they got their offer accepted. They've been competing against 20 and 30 people. Ask for the review then. Does that make sense, you guys? Ask them when they're the happiest, which is not always at the closing table. Okay. All right. Man, we've been busy today. We covered a lot. Okay. Talked a lot. I don't think we need to go there. Right. Post-close follow-up. What's your plan? Staying the real estate expert of choice involves some follow-up after the closing. Right? You got all kinds of admin stuff you need to do, right? You got to get all your docs uploaded and all the closing things and all of that stuff that I don't do, right? But then what do you do with the client afterwards? Are you going to be the agent who never calls them again? Are you going to be the agent who goes, well, you know, average people don't buy it, they move every 7 years, so I'll check in with them in 6.5. And then they get a job transfer 2 years in. Or they get pregnant and have triplets. They need a bigger house. So how do you stay in touch with people? I would argue a 36 touch plan is huge. And how do you incorporate that? And there's classes on that, so I'm not going to dive deep. I think we talked a little bit about those. I don't know. I'm so confused. Was that in business planning or did I talk about it in Ignite or both? Anyway, what is your communication plan, right? You should be using DTD2, calling those customers at least 4 times a year. Well, 2 of them can be easy, their birthday and their anniversary of when they bought their house. What if you put them into a smart plan that sent them an email once a month that shows all the other homes in their new neighborhood that are on the market and have recently sold using a monthly neighborhood nurture? You turn it on and you forget it. It's my favorite kind of smart plan. The one that I just turn it on and it goes. So as you are going through this valuable time of year right now, which is business planning, what does it look like after a closing, and start thinking through what you want to do, right? And there are so many things, and maybe you just start with, well, I'll call them 4 times a year and I'll put them on a monthly neighborhood nurture and I'll send them a Bronco schedule. And if that's where you are in your business right now, that's okay. But have a plan, right? What I can't stress enough is have a plan to stay in touch with your clients, right? And as part of your coaching sessions, we talk about this all the time, right? We talk about touch plans. We talk about that, right? The other question, post-close follow-up. There's some other things that you can do. So how many of you heard that realtors have to give closing gifts? So first of all, there's no have to. You do it because you want to. And you do it because it's a big deal. It's a big occasion and you want them to remember you. So my question is, how do you make it memorable? Some agents, like some bigger teams, and some agents like it so that it's simple and it's the same for everybody. So they buy these Cutco knives and they wrap them up and they show up at the closing table and hand the buyer or the seller a box of knives. And if you buy a home with them and sell a home with them, you get the same box of knives. That's logo. It's got their logo on it. So every time they pull the knife out, it works. Okay. Other people customize things, right? Depending on the client, depending on the purchase price. One of my favorite things to do, which is so inexpensive, and every time I do it, they cry. If I have a seller and we're using their furniture in the staging, okay, that's the trick. But we've staged it and that house looks better than it's ever looked the entire time they lived there. Most sellers ask you, can we have pictures of our house? So what I do is we create a Shutterfly book. Okay. And and I'm a scrapbooker, right? So, you know, we make it fun and creative. If that's not your jam, find somebody who is and pay them a little bit of money. But I make them a photo album with the pictures of their house. It's got stickers in it. It's got quotes. Surprise, there's quotes in Margaret's books, right? And in the very last page of my book, if I help them buy the house that they're buying, I have a picture of the new house on the very last page. If I know they're moving, like I had a client who was moving to New Zealand, I had another one that moved to Minnesota, and we didn't know what town, we just put a picture of that, right? It costs you, if you watch Shutterfly, you can buy those little 8x8 books for like less than 25 bucks. They will keep that book forever when they throw away the Cutco knives that you spent $150 on. And then inside the book, I always do a handwritten note. Powerful, right? Powerful, right? The clients that are moving to Kentucky, when they moved up to the moving truck and I knew they were driving and they were doing a 24-hour straight through drive, I literally showed up at their house the day before they were heading out, and they were Broncos fans. So I went and got a Denver Broncos cooler and I filled it with road trip snacks. I filled it with Colorado travel mugs so they could never forget where they came from, right? And they had Twizzlers and they had sunflower seeds and they had a gift card for, I think they're Chipotle people. They stop at it, they will eat Chipotle no matter what. So I think I had like $100 Chipotle card in there, right? Things that were going to get them from Denver to Kentucky. And yet there was a memento when they got there that still had Colorado. So when they pull out those Colorado mugs, who are they going to think of? Hopefully me, right? Right? So have fun with your closing gifts, but they're not a requirement. I just want you to know that. don't go stupid on it. That's all I'm gonna tell you. Don't have to spend thousands of dollars, and I wouldn't. We usually use a 1% of the commission as a guide, depending on who the client is. Okay. Why did that not go? Okay. Questions on this part about post-close follow-up? What are some of your ideas?
I'm gonna spend 100% of my commission on my client.
Well, I think that's appropriate.
And then
But I also think that you should take your designer out for dinner.
Yes, definitely.
Brandon is the owner of the house. So, other thoughts, any ideas? Either in post-close follow-up or just closing gifts in general.
I love this graphic idea.
You what? Say that again.
I love this graphic idea.
Okay. Awesome. All right. You may not be there today, but just start thinking, what would I do? What do I want to do that's special? Right. And sometimes, it's client specific. One of the things we've started doing is through Amanda and Nikki, we found a vendor who does these great big boards that say welcome. And she turns the C into a Colorado flag. And then she writes their name on it. So it says welcome, and then it says the Shermans. So we show up at the closing table with this great big huge welcome board. And the last one I did at the Kitashimas, he looked at her and said, well, now you can return that ugly one you bought.
oh,
Right? Because she just bought an ugly generic one at like Walmart or something. And he's like, yeah, you can get rid of that. Right? If I know like kids that just bought the house in Erie, we took the welcome, and at the very bottom, they both graduated from CU. We had the CU Buffalo emblem put on. Right? So if you know things about your clients, take something that's relatively inexpensive and then customize it a little bit. Buyers love that stuff. Right? Bob does some artwork. He's found an artist who will do a pencil sketch. You can find these people on Etsy too, but we'll do a pencil sketch of a picture of the house, either the one they're selling or the one they're buying. There's so many ideas. Have fun, make it be you. Right? I always say, if I would like that gift, then that's the right one. Right? All right. Cutco knives I don't keep. All right, co-agent follow-up. Why do we want to stay in touch with the other agent on the other side?
because you're probably going to do business with them again.
Future business, yep. Why else?
Referrals, maybe.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time, Becky. Try it again.
I said maybe referrals. I know. I don't know what's wrong with my computer. It keeps doing that.
Yeah, your microphone's kind of wonky. Yeah, possibly referrals, right? We've actually seen agents in Castle Rock go, I don't want to go to Arvada. Will you take care of this buyer and pay him a referral fee? Yep, that one works too. What else? We canceled Ignite so you could all go to that session a couple of weeks ago. What was it about?
Recruiting.
I'm going to use the word
Recruitment.
profit share. Okay.
Private share.
Profit
Oh,
share, right?
yeah.
Building your 401k through real estate.
Yeah.
Right? You guys have come to a company that I think you all really are finding value in. And you're getting a great amount of support. And you're probably going to find at some point in your life, in your real estate life, the agent on the other side doesn't have what you have. Maybe there's people you went to real estate school with who didn't come to Keller. Right? So how do you stay in relationship with that cooperative agent? What's really funny is I have some cooperative agents that we are best of friends now. One, send them a handwritten thank you card. Okay. Invite them to a training. Right? I usually invite 2 or 3 of the agents that I worked with throughout the years to the business planning clinic. Right? Maybe there's a workshop or a class that we're having on social media that you see in the future and go, oh my goodness, when I was talking to John over there at that other brokerage firm, he was talking about how he struggles with social media. I should invite him to this class. I really liked working with him. If you liked working with him, bring him to the family. Right? Invite them to trainings, send them a book, send them the one thing. I don't give out the MREA Red Book, and this is my own talking head, but I heard someone one time say, yeah, I hate going to closings with Keller Williams agents because they all give me that stupid Red Book. Well, I don't want to be the Keller Williams agent that everybody's giving out the Red Book. Now, I don't know that that's true or not, but at one point in time that was. So I give them a copy of the one thing. I might actually give them a copy of the new book. Right? Your first home. And I might say, hey, this book just got published and I've been using it with my first time home buyers. I wanted to give this to you in case you could use it with your clients. Right? There's all kinds of ways to do it, right? Sharing information. I would argue, become their Facebook friends. Become their Facebook friends. Stay in touch with them. That's what I would say. All right. Ahas on the other broker. Okay, this one's going good today. All right. I'm hoping that when Diane calls me next week, she'll go, the best session I had was last Tuesday. All right. Trust me, the instructors are tired too. Okay. So every day we've been doing this. Today, we worked on some timelines. Do you have the basis for a timeline that you can now take and do some adjustments to? You have the starting point? Please say yes. Otherwise, we have to start over. Okay. Becky's like, I'm saying yes, no matter what it is. All right. Yeah, you got the start of a timeline. So maybe on Wednesday, when you're like going, oh, I should sign in and listen to Coach Tracy and go, oh, wait, we don't have Ignite. Maybe you take that timeline and you start working through it. And then maybe the next time you have a meeting with your coach, whether it's me or Jody, you say, here's kind of a start of a timeline when I'm working with a buyer. What do you think? Right? Remember, one-on-ones are designed to help you in your business. So take some of these things that you're learning in Ignite and work on them and bring them to us and let us help you with them, right? You will learn that timeline better than if I just handed you one. It would be easy if I just gave you my timelines, right? Yes. But then is it your business or is it mine? And maybe I do things differently than you do. Maybe my theories are different than yours. That's okay. Right? Maybe you want to give them gifts every time there's a benchmark, right? That's the new big thing in luxury, right? Give them a gift, give them a gift, give them a gift, right? I guess if I'm saying, you can, but I don't, that's not my jam. So my checklists don't help you, not on a high level, okay? Apply some of the hints that I gave you, right? The TD 1000, right? That is a huge little nugget for you guys to have. And maybe you make a note, pre-close walkthrough, TD 1000, right? And then you'll go, hey, Margaret, why did I write TD 1000 on this? And that's okay, right? But it'll help you get things moving, okay? So what I want you to do is on a piece of paper really quick, one of the things that we want to always talk about is how we've grown, right? So I want you to take a look back and answer one of these 4 questions really quickly for yourself. As a result of being here, how has your thinking changed? What idea or mindset that you received was new today or in the last couple of weeks? What do you feel differently about and how was that meaningful today? How will your behavior be different or what action will you take? That was always a big one for me. If you're in my class, what action are you going to go take? Why are you here? Okay, and then what tools, models, or systems are you going to develop or use? So really quick, take a few minutes on that. All right, anybody want to share?
Okay. So like I have said before, like my confidence has grown a lot more. And also I've been working on my calendar. So it's like something that I had been struggling with because I have the time, I just don't know how to like manage it. So I've been trying to use my calendar more and I feel like I'm doing better in that too. So I feel like those are the two things that
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Anybody else want to share? Actions you're going to take as a result of this?
I set up time, Chris.
So Becky first and then Brandon.
Okay, I just said I set up time with Chris and I have a list of questions
Awesome.
about the
Took an action to
different
work.
things. Yeah,
Yep. Time to get with Chris Voorhees, right? Help Chris build out those timelines with you, right? Now, the key is you got to know what you're going to want to do. Command's not going to just tell you, go do these things. But if you've built out your timeline, then Chris can help you build those into Command and how to manage this in Command. Love that one. Brandon, how about you?
Just to be more proactive in communicating with the buying agent. Don't assume that because she says she's gonna do something that she necessarily will, and I think just makes them feel better. Some other agents I've worked with have been maybe more reactive, wait until you see the inspection report, or wait till you see this date or whatever, but I think I'm gonna try to be a lot more collaborative than I've seen in the past.
Yep. I love that. Collaboration, right? You got the same thing. Anybody else? Okay. So we are going to take a quick, let's go to 11:05. So what is that? 6-minute break. Because I heard that breaks are important. So let's do that. And then we'll come back to part 2. Where am I?
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, good job. Yeah. Good job. Yeah.
Hey, Margaret, are you there?
Hey, Diane. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, just thank you for sending out that email. Did you coordinate all that?
It wasn't much coordination. I put together a little invite and said, hey, let's all go drinking.
Thank you for doing that. I realized after I sent out that email that you had all the information in there. For some reason, the little picture didn't come through until Jody said something to me.
Oh,
But
yeah.
anyway, yeah.
It'll be great to see it. Awesome. Yeah, I was talking to Brandon and we were gonna get together and celebrate, and we just figured everybody else ought to have the chance to come and hang out. So
yeah. I think that's great fun because I wanted everybody's email address for sure. Find out, if I'm desperate, can I come hang out with you guys or something? I don't know.
Well, please do. Please do.
I'm so bummed I'll miss it because I'm gonna be out of town.
I know, Sandy. I was bummed.
Well, we'll be doing it again. Don't you worry.
It can be a weekly thing.
Yeah.
I really think it would be great to at least have like a Zoom or something every once in a while to see, how everybody's doing.
That's a
to
good
get
idea.
Yeah.
I'll do that. See, Becky, I will put that on the calendar to do.
I thought that our last day of Ignite was Wednesday.
I did too. Is it not?
Yes, our last day is tomorrow. That's why we put this on Thursday.
Tomorrow is the last day.
Tomorrow's the last day, guys. Sorry.
Okay, excellent. Excellent.
I could go tomorrow, but I can't go Thursday.
Goodness.
All righty. Did I make
Okay,
it back?
Margaret, I did have another question.
Okay,
Can you hear me okay?
yep.
Okay, I don't know what's wrong with my, I don't know. Anyway, so you mentioned transaction coordinator many times, and I kind of understand what that is, but just a couple of questions about that. Like, how much do you pay them, and do they need to be real estate certified?
So they do not need to have a real estate license. As a matter of fact,
Okay.
Damien prefers they don't.
Okay.
The fees vary depending on the services they provide. I would say that generally it's under $400. I can tell you that mine, I pay $250 for buyers and $350 for sellers. But again, I don't know what's all out there and, you know, the different services. And what do? They take care of uploading all your documents in Command, whether it's for compliance. So they manage all of that process. They fill out the commission tab. They help you manage dates and deadlines. They help you move contracts back and forth between the buyer's agents and the seller's agents and back and forth. They're just really a great leverage for a lot of admin, and they give you another set of eyes on things.
So curious, is there like a set pool of these people that we could just say, hey, can you do this transaction for us? Or how does that work?
So every office is different. So that would be a great question to ask Jody as far as, or Val, as far as who the transaction coordinators are up in Foothills. Now, I will tell you, the one transaction coordinator that I know very well, because she has the same last name I do, could absolutely cover Foothills, but I want to respect the fact that they have people up there already.
No, that's awesome, because, you know, I mean, to me, it'd be worth every penny, right? Because it's so much less stress. So to me, it'd be worth that to do that. And on that same note, what about stagers? Like, I have somebody, they're not going to want to sell till the spring, of course, but they wanted staging. Do you pay for staging, and how much is that generally? So
yes, I pay for staging in most situations. It depends on the property. So the one thing I'll always do is that I will always pay for a staging consult, which is where, you know, this hold please, or we're going to have things flying. And I use a staging consult typically when I have a house, buyers or sellers aren't moving out. They got a lot of stuff everywhere. They're not hearing me because I do a lot of the staging myself, right? And I need a third voice to go in and be the bad guy. That artwork has to go down, right? Or if that's not my eye, which depending on the house, if they got too much stuff, sometimes I can't see it. So I will hire this stager to come out and do a consult. Last time the one I used did it before I hired my own was, I think it was around $400, $350, $400 for an hour. And then she would literally go and give the buyer an entire laundry list of everything they need, or seller everything they needed to do.
Okay.
As far as going in and staging, you can hire stagers. I actually happen to have the good fortune of having one on staff. So, you know, she takes care of whether it's their stuff and we just add in some extra stuff for pretty, or if it's a vacant home and we need to go in and put in furniture. So over time, right? And that's the key, right? Lead with what? What do I always tell you? Lead with revenue.
Oh,
right.
Okay. Over time, I have bought artwork. Over time, we've actually bought furniture. Over time, we buy accessories. Pretty soon, we're about to have a big sale. Because I'm sick of the artwork we're using, sick of the artwork we've been using. All of our houses are starting to look the same. It's time to sell what we have and still go buy something new. So guess who's going to get an opportunity to go buy all of Margaret's artwork?
Wow.
People in my world,
Cool.
right? So there's not a lot, but there's plenty there that needs to go away. So it's a time thing. You could actually rent furniture. There's different warehouses around the area that you can rent furniture, or your stager can. I make it part of my service package, but I also never discount my commission.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you want me to stage your house, you're gonna have to pay me, right? If you want to pay, don't take this the wrong way, Mark. If you want to pay Redfin charges, then your house ain't getting staged. Right? Because it's not in the economies. It doesn't make sense. So a lot of it's a judgment call, a lot of it's a learning. If you have an eye for design, you can probably do it yourself.
Not really.
Ask in your office. Those brokers up in the foothills do know who the stagers are and what they charge.
Okay. Okay.
Good questions. I like those kind of questions. I prefer questions, honestly.
That's good.
And now I'm going to figure out how to make this all. I don't want that up there anymore. What else you got for me? Give me some more questions while I like tap dance around and try and get my computer to do what I want it to do.
So then Andy doesn't just work for you. She works for whoever will hire.
Yeah, Andy probably, yeah. So she covers a lot of agents throughout the area. So she's got a pretty good, and she also is not just Keller Williams agnostic. Like she works with a couple of other brokerage firms.
Oh, she does.
Yeah. So which is good, right? I mean, it gives her lots of exposure and it absolutely works.
Hey guys, I gotta leave today and I will catch everybody tomorrow, okay, for our final class. You guys have a beautiful day, okay? Talk to
Go
you.
get him, Diane.
All right, see ya.
Yeah, she works with a multitude of different
But she
agents.
works from home, so like,
Mhm.
okay.
But I do drag her to the office every once in a while. I do that just to get to know. But yeah, she does. And then the other one in our office is Trevor Coleup. So, okay, I'm trying to find specifically, they're in here and I can't find them. So I'm trying to find some conversation starters that are different than what you've been doing. Does that sound like a plan? Are y'all bored with the same thing? You guys are so ready for Ignite to be over. What did I do? All right. So I think I want to, let's do this one. So we talked a lot about referrals today, right? Right. And so what happens when someone gives you a referral? How do you call that person? Right? If Lizbeth tells me, oh my goodness, Margaret, I just wanted to call and let you know, you need to call my friend Jackie, right? Jackie needs to buy a house and she really needs you. Okay. So we're going to have those conversations. Would you like to do that? Yes. Are you tired of, hi, my name is Susie and Ford and I'm in real estate? You guys have been practicing those to death, right? You're all comfortable with those and you're making those. Okay. So here's what we're going to do today. Now let's see if I can get my share screen to work the way I want it to.
I think there's only 3 of us online.
That's okay. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to go through this. So someone you know has given you a referral. Okay. So it says, and for those of you that are in the book, It's page C8 towards the end of your participant guide. I think that's the page. I don't know.
It is.
Okay, so conversations with referrals. Hi, my name is Margaret with Keller Williams. Your name was given to me by a close friend of both of ours, Jackie. And she said that I should have a conversation with you. Is right now a good time to talk for a couple of minutes? Awesome. Jackie said you were thinking about buying a home in the next 6 months and asked if I would please get in touch with you. We both want to make certain that you are in great hands and that you have the very best, so that's why I'm reaching out. Since everyone likes to know what houses are selling for, I'd like to share my real estate app with you. Now, let's be honest, you guys, I'm not using that paragraph there. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to do that. That's not the first thing out of my mouth, right? I'm going to go into a different conversation that says, well, have you seen anything that you like this far? Are you working with another agent? I am going to ask that question in that environment. Or maybe I'm going to spin it up. Have you spoke to any other agents, right? Have you looked at homes, right? If they're selling, when are you planning to move? I'm going to actually start asking some of those qualifying questions that we talked about during the buyer and seller week, right? Remember, we talk about pre-qualifying leads. I'm going to start doing that in this conversation. And in the conversation where I'm asking some of those great questions, then I'm going to move on and I'm going to say, well, so the next step is for us to get together. Because what am I always driving to get in every conversation? A
Appointment.
appointment. Yay! I can answer all of your questions and explain how the entire process works. Can we meet today or would tomorrow be better for you? If they say they're not interested, I might say, I understand. I'd also like to offer a real estate update on your neighborhood or any neighborhood you're interested in. You can customize what you receive and how often. All I need is your current address and email, and you'll start receiving it right away. Do you mind sharing this information with me? Thanks. And do me a favor, please. If you hear of someone with a real estate need, will you keep me in mind? Great. And after you download the app and try it out, send me a text and let me know how you like it. I'd appreciate that. Thank you for your time today. And please let me know if there's anything I can ever do for you. So if I was doing this for real, I love the first 2 paragraphs. Then I'm going to go into the questioning, right? If they're buying or selling, I'm going to go into those questions. Then I'm going to drive for the appointment. And then that's when I'm going to bring them out to the app. I'm not going to start with, Jackie told me I should call you. By the way, do you want my app? Like that just it just doesn't feel natural to me. And I normally am not one to tell you to do these differently, but this one, I don't like how it flows. I like the paragraph. I just don't like where they put it. So as you're script practicing, and I'm going to put the 3 of you that are online in one group together so you can do this. Okay. Just practice it the way it's written, but know in reality, you might move that paragraph. But remember, in script practice, it's not about learning it always in this order, but it's about learning the sections so you can always control the conversation. Because if you don't control the conversation, you end up in bunny holes. Make sense? All right. So the key to this is read it exactly as it's written. Okay, that's the best way to practice scripts. So I'm going to throw the 3 of you into one, the 2 of you here in the room, and I'm going to pause the recording. So that's a whole lot of things I'm going to be doing at one time. All right. So we got that part done. Okay.